The first time I kissed him, it wasn't romantic. It was survival. His lips pressed against mine because he was drowning in silence, and I was the only one there to breathe life back into him. Funny how a moment born of desperation can brand itself into your skin like fire. And yet, he kept coming back. Always on nights when rain pounded against the windows. Always with that haunted look in his eyes. Always with his guitar in hand. His name was Adrian. No last name. At least not one he ever gave me. He was the kind of man who seemed stitched together from shadows and melody. The kind of man whose smile could make you feel chosen and cursed all at once. I wasn't supposed to be a part of his story. Hell, I was just the guy across the hall, the one who worked too much, drank too much coffee, and played his music too loud when he thought no one was listening. But Adrian heard. Somehow, he always heard. The first night it happened, I remember opening my door to find him standing there, soaked through, fingers trembling around the handle of his guitar case. His voice cracked when he asked, "Do you mind if I just stay for a while?" What I should have done was shut the door, call the cops, ask why a stranger knew my address. But instead, I stepped aside. Something in his eyes, loneliness carved too deep to fake, pulled me in. And that was how it started. He would disappear for days, sometimes weeks, and I'd almost convince myself I had imagined him. But then the rain would come, and with it, Adrian. Always Adrian. Always carrying that guitar. Always with a kiss waiting at the threshold of my lips. I wasn't a romantic. At least, not before him. Love had always seemed like an overpriced bottle of whiskey. You crave the warmth, but it burns more than it soothes. My parents divorced when I was 9. And since then I treated relationships like temporary shelters, useful when the storm hit, but not places you built your life in. Adrian wrecked all of that. I remember the first time he played for me. We were in my tiny apartment, rain hammering against the glass, and he sat cross-legged on my couch, tuning his guitar as if he had done it 1,000,000 times in that exact spot. His fingers were long, delicate, moving with a kind of reverence I didn't understand. When he played, the room changed. No, the whole world changed. The song was sad, but not the kind of sadness that breaks you. It was the kind that whispers, "You're not alone." I sat there, frozen, as his music filled every crack inside me I didn't know existed. Then, without a word, he leaned forward and kissed me. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't planned. It was raw, urgent, like he needed me to remind himself he was alive. My heart stumbled in my chest, and my brain screamed at me to push him away. But my body betrayed me. I kissed him back. When it ended, he just whispered, "Thank you," like I had given him more than oxygen. Then he packed up, left into the storm, and didn't come back for 3 weeks. There's a certain kind of madness in waiting for someone you don't understand. I'd sit by the window when the forecast said rain, pretending I wasn't looking for him, pretending my stomach didn't knot up every time thunder rolled through the city. And every time, without fail, he came back. It wasn't always kisses. Sometimes it was silence. Sometimes it was laughter that carried too much sadness. Sometimes it was just him collapsing onto my couch, guitar abandoned, hands shaking as though he had touched something terrible and couldn't wash it off. But always, it was me he came to. I started asking questions. Where did he go when the rain wasn't falling? Why did he always come back to me? What was he running from? But Adrian was a locked door, and I didn't have the key. All I knew was that when he kissed me, the world stopped hurting for a little while. And maybe that was enough. The turning point came one stormy night in November. I had fallen asleep on the couch, a half-empty mug of coffee gone cold on the table, when pounding rattled my door. I knew it was him before I opened it. But this time was different. He wasn't just wet from the rain, his knuckles were split. Blood dripping down his arm. Eyes wild with something between fear and fury. Adrian, don't ask. Please. Just let me stay. His voice cracked. Breaking into pieces I wanted to gather with my hands. Pulled him in, locked the door, and pressed a towel into his hands. His body trembled like he was holding himself together by sheer force of will. That night, he didn't kiss me. He clung to me. His arms wrapped around my waist like I was an anchor. His face buried in my chest as the storm howled outside. I stroked his hair, whispered nothing in particular, and pretended I didn't feel my heart fracturing under the weight of his silence. For the first time, I realized something terrifying. I wasn't just letting him in because I was curious. I wasn't just indulging a stranger with a guitar and a broken smile. I needed him. The thing about falling in love with someone like Adrian is that it's not a soft landing. It's a free fall with no parachute. And the ground is rushing up faster than you can breathe. And still, I didn't stop. Because maybe, just maybe, if I fell far enough, he'd fall with me. I wish I could tell you I asked the right questions that night. That I pulled the truth out of him. Demanded to know why his hands shook. Why his eyes looked like they had stared into hell and barely crawled out. But the truth is, I didn't. I was too afraid. Afraid that if I asked, he'd leave. Afraid that knowing the truth would turn him into something ordinary. Something ugly. Afraid that the fragile magic between us would vanish. So instead, I just held him. Adrian fell asleep in my arms that night. His breathing uneven. His body curled into mine like he had been waiting his whole life to find somewhere to rest. My shirt was damp with his tears. Or maybe the rainy couldn't tell anymore. When I woke up, he was gone. Just like that. No note. No explanation. The towel I'd given him was crumpled on the floor. His guitar leaning against the couch. It was the first time he'd left it behind. I remember staring at that instrument like it was a message. Promise. Or maybe a curse. For 3 weeks, there was nothing. No knocks in the middle of the night. No shadow waiting by my door when the sky turned gray. The rain came and went. Storms tearing through the city. But Adrian never showed. It drove me insane. I found myself wandering streets I'd never gone down before. Half hoping. Half fearing I'd see him playing on some corner. Or worse, lying face down in an alley. Every time I passed a pawn shop, my stomach twisted. What if he had sold the guitar? What if leaving it behind was his way of saying goodbye? But I couldn't bring myself to touch it. The guitar sat in my apartment like a ghost, daring me to open it, to play it, to pry into the secrets Adrian left behind. I didn't. Until the night I couldn't help myself. It was raining, of course it was raining, and the apartment felt emptier than it ever had. I stared at the guitar case like it might explode if I touched it, then finally snapped it open. The instrument was worn. Its wood scratched and scarred in ways that spoke of years of travel. But what caught me wasn't the damage. It was the initials carved into the back. It was something. The first piece of him he hadn't guarded like a fortress. I let my fingers strum a chord. Just one. Clumsy and off-key. The sound rang out. Raw and lonely. And I laughed bitterly. Of course I wasn't him. Of course I couldn't make it sing the way he did. But maybe that was the point. Maybe I wasn't supposed to. The next night, he came back. I almost didn't recognize him. His hair was shorter. His jaw more hollow. His eyes darker than I'd ever seen. He looked like someone had drained him of color, leaving only shadows behind. But when he saw the guitar in my lap, his expression cracked. His voice broke. He swallowed hard. You touched it. I felt caught, like a thief. You left it. That doesn't mean it was yours to open. His tone was sharp, sharper than I had ever heard from him. But underneath the anger was something else, fear. I set the guitar down carefully, like it was alive. Then tell me why you keep coming here. Tell me what the hell this is, Adrian. Because I can't keep doing this. I can't keep waiting for the rain like some pathetic. Don't. He snapped. His hands trembled as he gripped the back of a chair, his knuckles white. Don't say it. Don't make this harder. Harder for who? I demanded, standing. Because it feels like I'm the one being used here. You show up, you take what you need, and then you disappear. And I let you. I let you because God help may want you. But I don't even know who the fuck you are. Silence. The kind that hurts more than shouting. Finally, Adrian whispered, "That's exactly why you shouldn't want me." If this were a movie, that would have been the moment he broke down, confessed everything, and kissed me until the credits rolled. But life doesn't work like that. Instead, he turned, opened the door, and stepped back into the rain. This time, he didn't even look back. I should have let him go. I told myself 100 times that night, pacing my apartment, staring at the door like it owed me answers. I told myself that people like him, people with storms in their veins, didn't stay. That I deserved someone who didn't make love feel like a battlefield. But every time I tried to convince myself, I remembered the way he had held me that night with blood on his hands, as if I was the only safe place in a world that had tried to swallow him whole. And I knew I was already too far gone. The weeks that followed were worse than any breakup I'd had before. Because at least with a breakup, you get closure. You get words, angry, messy, final words. With Adrian, there was only silence. But silence can be louder than anything. I started dreaming of him. Sometimes he was playing his music so sad it woke me up with tears in my eyes. Sometimes he was running, his face twisted in terror, and I could never catch him. Sometimes he was kissing me, desperate and hungry, and I'd wake up gasping, reaching for a body that wasn't there. I hated him for it, and I missed him so much I could hardly breathe. It was December when I saw him again. Not at my door. Not in the rain. On a stage. I hadn't planned to go to that bar. I had stumbled in half-drunk, looking for distraction. And there he was, bathed in dim light, guitar cradled against him like it was part of his body. For a second, I thought I was hallucinating. But then he started to play, and the room fell silent. The song wasn't just music, it was a confession. Every note carried pain, longing, regret. And I swear, even though his eyes never left the guitar, every wordless chord was aimed at me. My chest tightened so hard it hurt. Because in that moment, I understood. This was who he was. This was where he went when he left me. This was why he only came back on nights when it rained, because storms were the only thing loud enough to drown out his own songs. And God help me, I loved him more for it. When he left the stage, I followed. Out into the alley. Into the freezing night where the city hummed around us. He didn't look surprised to see me. "Of course you're here," he muttered, pulling a cigarette from his pocket. His hands shook too much to light it. I stepped closer, grabbed the lighter, and did it for him. "Why?" I asked, my voice raw. "Why me?" He inhaled, exhaled, eyes half closed as smoke curled into the cold air. "Because," he said finally, his voice breaking, "when I kiss you, it's the only time the music stops." And then he kissed me again. Not like the first time. Not desperate. Not rushed. This time, it was slow. Terrifyingly gentle. Like he was giving me a piece of himself he had never given anyone before. That was the night I realized something that would change everything. I wasn't just falling for Adrian. I was already his. Completely. Hopelessly. Dangerously his. You'd think that kiss in the alley would have answered something. That it would have pulled back the curtain, revealed the truth, turned Adrian from a riddle into a man. But that's not how it works. The truth doesn't come in grand moments. It comes in fragments, broken glass scattered across the floor. And with Adrian, every shard cut me deeper. We started something after that night. I don't know what else to call it. Not a relationship. Not really. But not nothing either. He stopped vanishing for weeks at a time. He still disappeared. But now he came back sooner. Sometimes with bruises he refused to explain. Sometimes with laughter that felt borrowed. Sometimes with silence so heavy it filled the room like smoke. And sometimes he came back with music. I'd wake to the sound of his guitar drifting through my apartment. Soft, haunting, like he was playing for ghosts only he could see. I'd lie there, eyes closed, pretending to sleep, because I knew if I moved, if I looked at him, he'd stop. Those nights, I thought maybe we were okay. Maybe the storm in him could be weathered. Maybe he trusted me enough to let me stay. But then the cracks showed. One evening, I found him sitting on my fire escape, staring out at the city like it was a battlefield he'd lost. A half-empty bottle of whiskey dangled from his hand. "Careful," I said, sliding the window open. "One wrong move and you're a headline." He didn't look at me. Wouldn't be the worst thing. My stomach clenched. Don't you dare say shit like that." Adrian finally turned, his eyes glassy, his smile a jagged edge. "Why not? It's true." I climbed out beside him, the metal cold beneath me. "If you're trying to scare me, it's working. But if you're trying to make me leave, you'll have to try harder." His smile faltered. For a moment, I saw something raw flicker across his face. Then he whispered, "You don't know what you're signing up for." "Then tell me." I shot back. "Tell me what the hell you're running from." Adrian's jaw tightened. He turned away, eyes back on the city. "Some truths don't set you free. They chain you down." I wanted to shake him. I wanted to drag the answers out of him. But I didn't. Instead, I touched his hand. Just a brush of fingers. Enough to remind him I was there. He didn't pull away. Sometimes, that had to be enough. The first real crack in his armor came one night in January. We were in bed, our clothes scattered across the floor. Our bodies still tangled in the aftermath of something reckless and desperate. Adrian lay beside me, chest rising and falling, eyes fixed on the ceiling. "Do you ever wish," he said quietly, "that you could just start over? Wipe it all clean. Pretend none of it ever happened?" I turned to look at him. "Depends what it is." He laughed bitterly. "Everything." There was a weight in his voice, a finality that scared me. "Adrian." I reached for him, tracing the line of his arm. "Whatever it is, you don't have to carry it alone." He shook his head. "You say that now, but you don't know what I've done." Something inside me ached. I wanted to tell him it didn't matter, that nothing could make me stop wanting him. But the truth was, I didn't know, and that terrified me. Weeks passed, and the more he tried to keep his past buried, the more it clawed its way out. Little things. The way he flinched at sirens. The way he avoided certain streets. The way he never touched money without staring at it first, as if it carried blood. And then there were the nightmares. I'd wake to find him thrashing, sweat soaking the sheets, his lips forming words I couldn't hear. Sometimes he'd bolt upright, gasping, eyes wide and unseeing. When I tried to hold him, he'd shove me away. But when he finally came back to himself, shaking, he'd cling to me like he thought I might disappear. Those nights broke me in ways I didn't understand. Because no matter how tightly I held him, I couldn't chase away whatever ghosts hunted him in his sleep. It was on one of those nights that he finally cracked. He woke screaming. I grabbed him before he fell out of bed, his nails digging into my skin, his breath ragged. "Adrian, hey. It's me. You're safe. You're here." He blinked, dazed, tears streaking his face. Then, suddenly, he whispered, "I killed him." The words froze me. "What?" Adrian's body shook as he pulled away, pressing his hands to his face. "I killed him. And no matter how many songs I play, no matter how many nights I spend trying to forget it doesn't go away." The room went silent except for the storm outside. I didn't know what to say. Didn't know if I should ask who, or how, or why. All I knew was that the man I loved was unraveling right in front of me. So I did the only thing I could. I pulled him into my arms and whispered, "You don't have to tell me tonight, but when you're ready I'll listen." Adrian sobbed against my chest, his hands clutching me like I was the last solid thing in a collapsing world. And in that moment, I realized the truth. Whatever darkness lived in him, it wasn't going to leave easily. But neither was I. From then on, something shifted. He didn't tell me everything. Not yet. But he started letting me see the edges, the broken pieces he usually hid. And I learned to stop asking for the whole truth all at once. Because love isn't about tearing down walls in a single night. It's about sitting at the base of them, waiting until the person inside decides to let you in. But I also knew this. Sooner or later, the storm he was running from would catch up to him. And when it did, I had to be ready, even if it meant being pulled under with him. He didn't speak again that night. After confessing those 3 words, "I killed him," Adrian folded back into himself, trembling against me until exhaustion dragged him under. I lay awake long after, staring at the ceiling, my heart pounding like it wanted to tear through my chest. I wanted to believe he didn't mean it literally, that killed was a metaphor, some poetic exaggeration his music had infected into his speech. But the way his voice had broken, the way his body had seized up, no, it wasn't metaphor. Adrian had blood in his past, and now it stained the sheets between us. The next morning, he acted like nothing had happened. He made coffee too strong, too bitter, and hummed under his breath while staring out the window. His hands still shook, but his smile was carefully placed, like makeup covering a bruise. I wanted to grab him by the shoulders, shake him, scream, "Tell me the truth." Instead, I said, "Your humming is off-key." He looked at me, startled, and then laughed, really laughed. The sound filled the room, warm and broken at the same time. It hit me the knife I pushed too hard. I might lose him. So I didn't. Not yet. But the words haunted me. I killed him. They echoed every time I heard sirens in the distance. Every time Adrian disappeared without explanation. Every time I caught him staring at nothing, his jaw tight, his eyes hollow. And with each echo, my love twisted tighter into fear. The breaking point came 2 weeks later. It was late, close to midnight, when I heard the knock. Not his usual gentle, hesitant knock, but frantic, pounding. I yanked the door open to find Adrian standing there, drenched in rain, his knuckles raw and bleeding, his chest heaving. "Please," he gasped. "Please let me in." I stepped aside without a word, my pulse thundering. He stumbled inside, collapsing onto the couch, clutching his guitar case like it was the only thing keeping him upright. "What happened?" I demanded, kneeling in front of him. His eyes darted to the window, to the storm raging outside, then back to me. He looked like a hunted animal. "They found me." My throat went dry. "Who?" Adrian's hands trembled as he opened the guitar case. But inside, instead of just the instrument, There was a stack of letters, worn and yellowed, bound with a string. He shoved them toward me. "Read," he whispered. "Then you'll understand." The letters weren't addressed to him. They were addressed to someone named Michael. The handwriting was neat at first, then grew messier, more desperate. I scanned the words, my heart sinking with each line. "Michael, you promised you wouldn't go back there. Michael, if they find out what you did, they'll kill you. Michael, please, I can't lose you again." I looked up. "Who's Michael?" Adrian's eyes filled with something between rage and grief. "My brother." I froze. You have a brother." "Had," he corrected, his voice shattering. "He's gone. Because of me." The story spilled out in pieces, jagged and painful. Michael had been older, the golden boy. He was supposed to escape, get out of the small town that suffocated them, make something of himself. But he fell into the wrong crowd. Gangs, drugs, deals gone bad. Adrian, barely 16 at the time, tried to follow him, tried to protect him, tried to drag him back from the edge. But one night, in an alley not unlike the ones Adrian and I had walked past together, things went wrong. A fight, a knife, blood, and Michael never got up again. "I killed him," Adrian whispered, his voice hollow. "Not with my hands, but with my silence. I didn't stop him soon enough. I didn't pull him out when I still could. I let him drown, and when I tried to save him, it was too late." His whole body shook as he spoke. His fists pressed against his knees. "Every note I play, every song it's him. It's me trying to hear his voice again. But it never works. He's still gone." I sat there, the letters clutched in my hands, my chest aching. He hadn't stabbed anyone. He hadn't pulled the trigger. But guilt had eaten him alive all the same. "Adrian," I said softly, reaching for him. "You were a kid. It wasn't your fault." His eyes snapped to mine. Wild. "Don't you dare let me off that easy. I should have been enough to save him. I wasn't. And now I'm the one left breathing." The anger in his voice wasn't at me. It was at himself. And it broke me. I pulled him into my arms, letters falling to the floor, and held him as he sobbed. His body convulsed against mine, years of buried grief tearing free. I didn't tell him it was okay, because it wasn't. I didn't tell him to forget, because he couldn't. I just whispered, "You're not alone anymore." And for the first time, he didn't fight me. That night, Adrian stayed. Not just in body, but in spirit. We lay tangled in bed, his face pressed into my chest, his breath warm against my skin. And in the quiet between storms, I felt him finally let go of his brother. Not of the pain, but of the idea that he had to carry it alone. And in that fragile, fleeting moment, I thought maybe we had a chance. Maybe love could survive even this. But I should have known better. Because secrets don't stay buried. And Adrian's past wasn't finished with him yet. For a while, I thought the storm had passed. Adrian had told me enough of the truth to stop hiding completely. He still carried his ghosts. But he let me carry some of their weight too. We'd wake together more often. Share coffee like it meant something. Kiss like it wasn't just a stolen moment before another disappearance. But peace with Adrian was always fragile, like holding water in cupped hands. No matter how tightly I tried, it always found a way to slip through. The first sign came when I noticed him jumpier than usual. A shadow at the end of the street would send his jaw tightening. Loud voices made him flinch. He started sleeping with the guitar case closer, like he was guarding it. One night, after he thought I'd fallen asleep, I heard him whispering into the phone. "No, I told you I'm done. Don't call me again. His voice cracked on that last word. And in my gut, I knew his past wasn't just memory. It was a living thing, and it was clawing its way back. The confrontation came faster than I expected. It was late, and we'd just left a small underground club where Adrian had played a set. His music had held the crowd in silence, raw and aching, but his hands had trembled the whole time. As we stepped out into the rain, two men leaned against a car across the street. They weren't audience members. They weren't fans. Their eyes were too sharp, too cold. Adrian froze. One of the men smirked. Well, look who it is. Thought you could vanish. I glanced at Adrian, my chest tightening. His face had gone pale, his knuckles white around the guitar case. Let's go, I whispered, tugging at his arm. But the men were already moving closer. You owe us, kid, the taller one said, his voice low and dangerous. Your brother's debt didn't die with him. My heart lurched. Michael. Adrian's breathing turned ragged. Who told you? I don't have it. Then you'd better find a way. The man's smile was cruel. Or maybe we take something else instead. His gaze slid toward me. That was enough. I stepped forward before I could think better of it. Fury boiling in my chest. Back off. The man chuckled. Cute. Boyfriend thinks he's a hero. Adrian pulled me back, his hand shaking in mine. Don't. Please. His voice cracked like glass. The men laughed, muttered something about next time, and vanished into the night. But the damage was done. Because now I knew exactly what Adrian had been running from. When we finally got back to my apartment, Adrian collapsed onto the couch, burying his face in his hands. They won't stop, he whispered. They'll never stop. I knelt in front of him, my hands on his knees. Then tell me what we're up against. Tell me everything. And this time, he did. Michael hadn't just gotten tangled in gangs. He'd borrowed money, large sums from people you don't just owe. People who expect blood if you can't pay. When Michael died, the debt didn't vanish. And Adrian, desperate and guilt-ridden, had tried to shoulder it. He played in underground clubs, hustled, gave them whatever scraps he could earn. But it was never enough. And when he couldn't pay, he ran. I thought if I stayed gone long enough, they'd forget me, Adrian said, his voice hoarse. But they never do. They always find me. And now he broke off, looking at me with wide, panicked eyes. Now they'll come after you. I should have been terrified. Maybe I was. But more than that, I was furious at them. Fate. At the world that had crushed a boy who only wanted to play music. They're not taking you, I said firmly. Not while I'm here. Adrian shook his head. You don't understand. They'll destroy you just to get to me. Then let them try. My voice came out harder than I expected. I'm not going anywhere, Adrian. You don't get to push me away to protect me. That's not how this works. For a long moment, he just stared at me, like he was seeing me for the first time. Then his eyes filled with tears, and he whispered, Why? Why would you risk everything for me? I pressed my forehead to his, my voice breaking. Because when you kiss me, I finally feel like I'm not alone in this fucked up world. And I won't let anyone take that away. He kissed me then hard, desperate, a clash of fear and love and defiance. And in that kiss, I knew whatever storm was coming, we were walking into it together. The next days blurred into a strange rhythm of fear and tenderness. Adrian played more often, as if pouring his panic into the strings of his guitar. I worked during the day, but every evening I came home expecting a shadow to be waiting. And sometimes, there was Cars idling too long on our street. Strangers watching from corners. A note slipped under the door. Time's running out. Adrian grew thinner, quieter, but when I held him at night, he clung to me like I was the only lifeline he had left. And I clung back, because maybe I was. The confrontation I'd been dreading came one night when the rain was so heavy the city felt like it might drown. A knock at the door. Not Adrian's knock. When I opened it, two men pushed their way in before I could react. The same ones from the street. Adrian was already standing, his face pale, his guitar case clutched in his hand like a shield. "It's over," the taller man said, his voice cold. "You've had your fun, kid. But debts don't vanish in the rain." My fists clenched. "Leave him alone." The man smirked. "You're brave. Stupid, but brave." He stepped closer, looming over Adrian. "You got one last chance. Pay up. Or next time, it won't be just a warning." Adrian's voice shook as he whispered, "I don't have it." The man leaned in, his tone low and vicious. "Then maybe we take him instead." He jerked his chin toward me. Adrian snapped. He shoved the man back, his guitar case falling open, the strings inside rattling like a scream. "Touch him." Adrian spat, his whole body trembling. "And I swear I'll burn this whole city down before I let you." The room went silent. For the first time, I saw not just the broken boy, not just the haunted musician, but the man who had carried grief and guilt and still stood unbroken. The men exchanged a look, muttered something about next time, and left as suddenly as they'd come. The door slammed shut. The silence rang louder than their threats. Adrian collapsed to the floor, his hands over his face, sobs tearing out of him. I dropped down beside him, pulling him into my arms. "It's okay," I whispered. "They're gone." But we both knew they weren't. Not really. The storm wasn't over. It was just beginning. Adrian didn't sleep that night. He sat by the window, staring at the rain with his guitar across his lap, his fingers moving but not pressing down on the strings. Silent chords. Ghosts of music. When I woke, his eyes were still open, rimmed red, hollow. "They won't stop," he whispered, not even looking at me. "You saw it. You know it now. They'll keep coming until I break. And I can't let them touch you. I'd rather disappear." I sat up sharply. "No, don't say that." His shoulders trembled. "I'm poison, and you know it. My brother's sins. My failures theory chains I can't cut. And now they're around your neck too." I went to him, crouched down, took his face in my hands. "Listen to me. You are not poison. You're a boy who lost too much too soon, and the world punished you for it. But you are not your brother's mistakes. You are not your debt. You are not broken." For the first time in days, his eyes flicked toward mine, searching, fragile. "Then what am I?" I pressed my forehead to his. "Mine." The next days bled together like one long storm. I stopped going to work. Adrian stopped leaving the apartment except at night to play. His music was his shield, his confession, his way of keeping the darkness just far enough away that it didn't consume him. But the men kept circling closer. Notes under the door. Shadows outside the window. A brick through the glass one night. The word pay scrawled across it. Adrian held me so tight that night I thought my ribs might crack. They're going to end this, one way or another. And he was right. Because the next evening, when the rain fell in sheets so heavy the city blurred, they came for him. We heard the knock first. Heavy. Measured. Not strangers this time. Not a warning. A sentence. Adrian's face went pale. He grabbed his guitar case. Like instinct. Like armor. "They'll hurt you," he whispered. "Stay here." "Like hell I will." I grabbed his wrist, anchoring him. "You're not walking into this alone." His lips trembled, like he wanted to argue. But instead, he kissed me fast. Hard. A kiss that tasted like goodbye. Then the door burst open. 3 men this time. Bigger. Meaner. They didn't bother talking. One shoved Adrian back. Another grabbed my arm, twisting it hard. "Stop," Adrian shouted, lunging toward me. The tallest man sneered. "You had your chance. Debts due. Someone pays tonight." Adrian's body shook, but his voice cut through the room like steel. "Take me. Leave him." My chest ripped open. "No. Don't you dare." The man holding me laughed. "Sweet. He'd bleed for you." In the chaos, Adrian's guitar case slipped open. The instrument clattered across the floor, the sound sharp and aching. Something inside Adrian snapped. He ripped free, eyes blazing, and stood tall for the first time, not as the haunted boy I knew, but as someone who refused to die on his knees. "You don't own me," he spat. "And you sure as hell don't touch him." The fight was messy, desperate. I don't remember every detail, only flashes, fists, shouts, blood. Adrian shielding me with his body. My own voice hoarse from screaming. At some point, neighbors must have called the cops, because sirens wailed in the distance. The men cursed, shoving Adrian hard against the wall, then fled into the rain before flashing lights reached the block. And just like that, they were gone. Adrian slid down the wall, breathless, bleeding from his lip, his shirt torn. I fell to my knees beside him, clutching him like I could hold the world together with just my arms. "They'll be back," he whispered, voice cracking. "They always come back." I shook my head, pressing my forehead to his. "Not this time. You're not running anymore. We're going to fight this with the law, with the truth, with whatever it takes. You don't have to carry it alone." His hands trembled as he clung to me. "What if I lose you in the process?" "You won't." My voice broke. "Because I'm not leaving." And for the first time, I think he believed me. It wasn't easy after that. The police took statements. Investigations opened. Adrian had to dredge up every painful memory, every name, every detail he'd tried to bury. He shook through every interview. But I was always there, holding his hand. The men were caught, eventually faces on camera. Records of threats. A trail that finally caught up with them. It wasn't overnight. It wasn't neat. But it was enough. And slowly, like dawn after a storm, the world quieted. Weeks later, the rain came again. Adrian sat by the window, guitar in hand. But this time, he wasn't silent. He played soft, aching notes that filled the room. Not with sorrow, but with something fragile and luminous. I leaned against the doorframe, just watching him. He looked different. Not unscared, never that. But lighter, somehow. Like someone who had finally put down a weight he'd carried too long. When he noticed me, he smiled. A small, shy thing. "Come here." I crossed the room, sat beside him. He rested his head on my shoulder, the music still threading between us. "Do you think," he whispered, "it's possible for people like me to have happy endings?" I kissed the top of his damp hair. "I don't think. I know." He laughed softly, disbelieving but warm. "And what does ours look like?" I tilted his chin, pressed my lips to his. Slow this time. Certain. Like this. Always like this. And outside, the rain kept falling. But for once, felt less like a storm and more like a song. Adrian still only played on rainy nights. But now, the music wasn't a cry for help. It was a promise. That he was here. That he wasn't alone. That somehow, in this chaotic world, he had found someone to kiss and someone who would never stop kissing him back. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.